With the Egghead arc, the first in One Piece's final saga, about to reach its home stretch, we Straw Hat Pirate fans are undoubtedly in for a treat. So if you're wondering what's going on with your favorite characters, whether it's Luffy, Bonney, or Dorry, stick around until the end of this video to find out what you can expect from One Piece chapter 1106. But before we begin, of course, it's a given that there will be heavy spoilers ahead for One Piece's manga. With that out of the way, let's dive into it. One Piece, Chapter 1106, with J. Garcia Saturn ordering the Marines to set Egghead Island ablaze and completely level it to the ground in the previous chapter of One Piece, this latest installment opens from the vantage point of a mysterious ship that's, curiously enough, headed for where all the carnage is. Two unidentified voices remark on how the onslaught on Egghead Island is exactly as the newspapers reported. Then again, we're not surprised with the kind of ground-shaking battle going on. This is One Piece after all, and epic scorched earth-style carnage is part and parcel of the series. Now, we're not one to make assumptions, but we're pretty sure that this is the same ship responsible for destroying the vessel that Saturn ordered to deal with the researchers on the previous chapter. Back on Egghead Island, the Straw Hat Pirates' fearless leader, Luffy, falls to the ground right in the middle of gun-toting Marines who are scampering to flee the ongoing Buster Call. Don't worry about it though, our favorite Gomu Gomu Devil Fruit user isn't out of commission. In fact, he's been stuffing himself with food these past few chapters, and guess what? Luffy's digested all those tasty treats. This explains the fear-stricken reaction from the Marines when they see the notorious Straw Hat land right in front of them. As for us fans, we definitely know what time it is when Luffy's gorged himself with a month's worth of food all in one go. We can't say the same for the Marines though, who are either too naive or stupid to realize Luffy's smiling, fiery form as they argue whether they should put him in sea stone cuffs or not. Meanwhile, Dr. Vegapunk watches the skies as the vacuum rocket that Bonney, Atlas, and Frankie are on falls from the sky after Kizaru's attack. The scientist desperately calls for Atlas as the little girl and her comrades freefall hundreds of feet in the air. All the while, the snooty warrior god of science and defense, Saturn, orders the Pacifistas to open fire at Bonney and everyone else who are on the vacuum rocket. And in a highly kinetic sequence that few other masters of manga can accomplish, Atlas relays the message to Bonney about what Vegapunk told her just as the Pacifistas are charging their weapons. Not knowing what to do, Bonney shouts for her dad, Kuma, who's pretty much the model after which all other Pacifistas have been created, to help them escape the island. As an aside, the close-up panels of the split second between Bonney's order and Kuma hearing it simply accentuates Oda-sensei's mastery of the manga craft. The Marines in the area look on, wondering if they did hear Bonney say something to the robotic army. It doesn't matter, however, because their mumblings are cut short when they see the Pacifistas turn around and aim their weapons at them. The same thing happens on the edge of Egghead Island as numerous Marine ships are destroyed when the Pacifistas turn on them and open fire. We can't stress this enough. Few other mangaka out there can deliver a double-page spread depicting naval onslaught the way Eiichiro Oda does. Back to the story, Saturn gets his comeuppance when he sees the robotic army blasting away at his precious Marine ships. And here's where we see one of the big reveals from the Egghead arc, as Vegapunk monologues about a failsafe he built within the Pacifistas. Unbeknownst even to higher-ups like J. Garcia Saturn, Vegapunk had installed an override command within each and every Pacifista that shares Kuma's appearance, and passed authority of it to Bonney. He also reveals that he did this as a way to prevent Kuma from ever hurting his daughter. The override command that Bonney now possesses is rather absolute too, as Vegapunk reveals that any and all Pacifista resembling Kuma will always prioritize Bonney's orders over anyone else's, even an elder like J. Garcia Saturn. Can you guys imagine the implications of this move to the rest of the narrative in One Piece's final saga? Now, not only do we have someone who's basically a devil fruit user with power over time, but she's also become the commander of an entire army of immensely powerful robotic soldiers capable of leveling a Buster Call. Yikes. And now we reach the second mind-blowing, heart-stopping moment from this One Piece chapter. Because just as Vegapunk reveals to us that Kuma will always be on Bonney's side, which is a huge gut punch to us fans in and of itself, J. Garcia Saturn sneaks in and impales the old genius scientist from behind. Bonney, Atlas, and Frankie see this atrocity unfold, and they respond by rushing towards the grotesque elder. Their counter-offensive falls short though, as Saturn orders Kizaru to take them down. Kizaru's initial Pika Pika no Mi technique halts Franky and Atlas. Even worse, it leaves an opening for the light-footed Admiral to rush Bonney and Kuma so that he can get the father-daughter tandem in one fell swoop. Kizaru raises his sword, gloating and relishing how he'll make a clean slash so that Bonney and Kuma can be together right to the very end. All the Pacifista can do at this moment is shield his daughter and hope it's enough to stop Kizaru's blade. But then, Kizaru glances behind him and sees the fiery, laughing face of an all-too-familiar pirate. A gigantic extended hand punches the Admiral, which sends him crashing into the rubble below. Yes, ladies and gents, Gear 5 Luffy is back. It happens so fast that Bonney doesn't immediately realize that the fist that smacked Kizaru like a bug belongs to Luffy. Meanwhile, the leader of the Straw Hat laughs and tells everyone that he's now at full power after having a snack. And not a second passes when everyone on Egghead Island and beyond start hearing the signature rhythmic dun-dun-dun-dun of the drums of liberation. Franky, Atlas, Bonney, and Kuma land safely. All the while, the Marines on the shores of Egghead Island notice the island is rumbling from the drums of liberation. They all know what's coming, even Saturn and Kizaru. The loud beating of Luffy's heart in Gear 5 is overpowered by Bonnie's scream, however, as she rushes to Vegapunk's side. She speaks to the dying scientist, telling him that they have to leave the island right now. Elsewhere, the Iron Giant roils and creaks as it hears the drum of liberation's constant, loud dun-dun-dun-dun. Back at the center of the action, Bonney recognizes the familiar rhythm coming from Luffy. She recalls all the stories that Kuma told her when she was young about how the unmistakable beat of Nika's heart and the legendary hero's laughter heralded his arrival. Bonney looks on in the distance and sees Luffy, mischievous and vibrant, jumping across the land's skyscape. And with tears welling up in her eyes, she realizes that Luffy is Sun God Nika manifest. Vegapunk, in what might be the last few moments of his life, remarks that to Nika, and by extension Luffy, a Buster Call is nothing but a minor threat, and that people all over the world have been waiting for the legendary warrior's return for hundreds of years. At the same time, Marines at the northeastern edge of Egghead Island are about to get a big surprise. Officers desperately radio for backup as they report that an absurdly huge ship has suddenly appeared behind them. The large vessel looms over the Marine ships. The naval officers can only cling to their rifles as they turn around and see the gargantuan vessel headed straight through their lines. They can't believe their eyes, as they comment that whoever's on that ship was supposed to be dead 100 years ago. They argue amongst themselves as to why it's even here on the shores of Egghead Island, and it's not planning on stopping. The Marines load up their cannons and open fire amidst those questions, but no answer is waiting for them, only death. Death and the futile hope that they can escape the return of the giants, as Dorry and Brogy jump off their ship and land right on top of the Northeastern Marine Fleet on the shores of Egghead Island. Our thoughts about the One Piece chapter 1106. With One Piece's 1106th chapter in the books, we're inevitably getting one step closer to the end of arguably the GOAT of manga and anime. Sure, it's bittersweet, but whatever bitterness is overpowered by the sense of excitement that Oda-sensei delivers with each chapter in the Egghead arc. As it stands, the current installment has brought us anime fans with a lot of potentially status quo altering events that may have ramifications in the final saga's future. First, as we mentioned earlier, Bonney's now technically the head of a cybernetic army that can easily bring down a Buster Call. This makes her one of the most powerful characters in the series right now, and we can't help but wonder if Bonney and her army of pacifista Kumas will play a big part in bringing down Saturn and Kizaru. Or, looking farther beyond that, maybe Bonney and her robotic army will be integral to defeating the Elders down the road. Vegapunk's death seems imminent, and we wouldn't be surprised if Oda-sensei decides to push through with taking this character off the board. Vegapunk's demise would definitely provide the Egghead arc with that added tug to fans' heartstrings. Not that we're lacking for it, thanks to Kuma's heartbreaking tearjerker of an origin story. On Luffy's side of things, it's literally been almost 100 chapters since we last saw the grinning, rubbery Straw Hat Pirate's Gear 5 form. So seeing it now got our hearts pumping like the drums of liberation. And we're pretty sure yours did too. It's only a matter of time before Luffy, or should we say Sun God Nika, turns his attention to J. Garcia Saturn, and we get the gigantic showdown we're expecting from the Egghead arc. Speaking of gigantic, it's no understatement that the return of Dorry, Brogy, and the giant pirates is a big deal. No pun intended. They're on Egghead to aid Luffy and the gang, starting with trampling on the foolish Marines at the northeastern edge of the island. In fact, Oda-sensei even gave us tasty little Easter eggs that all but confirmed the return of the giants in One One Piece. You see, Chapter 116 was titled Big, while the current chapter 1106 is named On Your Side. Put those two together and you have Big on your side. You can always count on Oda to give us fans delicious breadcrumbs. Speaking of Chapter 1106's title, it's perfectly fitting for the events of the installment. Whether it's Kuma always being right by Bonney's side, Vegapunk doing the father-daughter tandem a solid by being on their side by way of the override command, or Brogy and Dorry coming to Luffy's aid, this chapter is all about not having to go it alone. As far as Chapter 1107 is concerned, it's almost certain that we'll be getting more scenes featuring Brogy and Dorry. Whether we get to see them bring the beat down on more Marines, or meet with Luffy by then is the real question. And when it comes to the future of the Egghead arc in general, there's a possibility that Luffy won't have to face Saturn's large spider-like form alone, now that he's got a band of giant pirates, an army of robots, and his friends to back him up. Honestly, we can't wait for the next installment of One Piece. Fair warning though, there's going to be a 1-week break between the current chapter and the next one. But if this means we're getting quality manga like this, we are not complaining. Want to stay up to date with One Piece and everything else manga and anime? Then don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on that notification bell to be the first to see the amazing videos we're preparing. We'll see you in the next one, guys.